All right, thanks, Steve. The AFC North to me is one of the most unique, competitive, difficult, interesting divisions in all of football for the simple reason every one of these teams has a legitimate chance at a postseason berth. Now, I don't know that every one of these teams has the same chance to win the division, but they have a legitimate chance at a postseason berth. This is a difficult division to win, but clearly, I believe, as they should be, the Cincinnati Bengals are the favorite based on the odds, plus 115. If you want to win, if you bet $100 to win on the Bengals to win the AFC North, you'd bring back 115 if they win it. So the Bengals, they went 12-4 last year. They won their last 8 regular season games in 2022. They got to their second straight AFC Championship game appearance, unfortunately falling to the Kansas City Chiefs. But this Bengals team was for real. They averaged 29 points per game during that 8-game stretch, and they got everybody back. Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Even with all the salary cap concerns, they kept them all. They did lose their tight end, Hayden Hurst, but they pick up the ex-Minnesota Viking tight end, Irv Smith Jr. So the Bengals, they are going to be a perennial contender, obviously thanks to Joe Burrow. He's the second favorite to win the MVP. Most sportsbooks NFL futures odds, only Patrick Mahomes, the defending champion Chiefs, is ahead of him. Burrow, 4,500 yards last year, 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. But let's also not forget about the Bengals defense. They are the unsung hero of the Cincinnati Bengals. They gave up the 5th fewest points on their defensive coordinator, a guy you're hearing more about. You heard him about the Super Bowl, Lou Anarumo. They held the Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills, Chiefs, an average of 16 points and no more than 23 in the playoffs. Now, they did lose both of their starting safeties, Von Bell and Jesse Bates III. I love Jesse Bates. He was a ball hawk. Some amazing interceptions. But they did bolster their pass rush, and they did add a first-round pick in Miles Murphy. The Bengals, and I'm guessing, and I should have asked Jason about this, Hershorn. I believe that Joe Burrow is on track to start week 1. We'll see, but we'll see. The Baltimore Ravens, plus 250. They're behind the Bengals. They're the second favorite to win the AFC North. You bet $100, it brings back $250 if they do it. They were kind of teetering as a franchise, but they managed to sign Lamar Jackson to that $260 million contract. Jackson's now going to have the chance to team up with some new big-time weapons. Odell Beckham Jr., who I still think has gas in the tank, and their first-round pick, Zay Flowers. They have more potent weapons in terms of wide receivers than Lamar Jackson has ever had in his tenure with the Baltimore. Now, the Ravens managed to go 10-7 last year, even though Lamar Jackson missed the final 5 games of the season, and they lost their divisional matchup to the Bengals. Jackson did also not play in that game, but in the midseason last year, again, talk about defense, Baltimore completely transformed their defense. They traded for Roquan Smith. They ranked 2nd in points, 3rd in yards allowed with Smith on the team. Now, John Harbaugh somehow knows how to stockpile regular season wins better than any coach in the league. His team, I think this might be his best team since the 2013 Super Bowl champs, but it's all going to come down to divisional games. All right? Last year, the Ravens were 3-3 against their division. They started out 3-0, but then lost their next 3 games. The wild card team for me in this division is the Cleveland Browns. They're plus 350, meaning if you bet $100 and the Cleveland Browns win the division, they win the AFC North, you'll win $350. But the future hinges heavily on Deshaun Watson. Watson has to rebound and transform back into the player he was before 2 years of Michigas went along. You know what happened. We don't need to go into it. Watson played only 6 games in 2022, threw for just 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, only completed 58% of his passes. Those are all bad numbers. Now, and by the way, they all represent career worsts for Deshaun Watson. Here's what's interesting. Despite very horrendous quarterback play last year, Cleveland still managed to finish the year at 7-10. Now, because they had issues at quarterback, opposing defenses were able to key on Nick Chubb. And even Myles Garrett, who had 16 sacks to lead a pretty good defense, that couldn't get the Browns over the hump. Now, the Browns have potential if Watson can return to being a top 10 quarterback. Simple as that. They have an all-star offensive line, maybe not as strong as it used to be, but you got plenty of offensive weapons with Chubb and Amari Cooper and David Njoku and a defense that can get after the quarterback. The team has potential. But you know what that word potential stands for. And again, it hinges on Deshaun Watson. Finally, the Steelers. If you line up all the fourth-place projected teams in the National Football League, the Steelers are by far the best. Now, I don't think they'll win the division. If you think they are, you bet $100, brings you back $650 to plus $650. Their defense ranked 10th in points, 11 in yards allowed, despite T.J. Watt missing 7 of the first 8 games. Now, it's no coincidence they finished the year 9-8 with 6 wins in their final 7 games. The biggest concern for the Steelers is an offense that has trouble scoring. They couldn't score in a women's prison with a fistful of 50s. Kenny Pickett was just getting wet behind the ears last year. Threw for 2,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Did play 13 games. And the running back, Najee Harris, he ran for 1,000 yards, but he only averaged 3.5 yards a carry. So the Steelers have been reportedly impressed with Pickett and his commitment, and I think he's growing. And he will start week 1. Pittsburgh also did add a couple of receivers, Allen Robinson. They added a new linebacker, Cole Holcomb. And they got themselves a nice rookie. You may remember this name, Joey Porter Jr. Pittsburgh will be tough. It's part of their culture. It's what they do. Give it up. Mike Tomlin runs a strong ship. He's never had a losing record. Do not go to sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's bring us to the win totals like we do every week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, check that. Let's go back to Cincinnati. Their win total is 11.5. Now they have a target on their back a little bit this year because they won the division the last 2 years, and they're tied with the Bills as having the best Super Bowl odds, plus 900 in the AFC. So they have a very good offense. They have a proven offense, probably the best offense, certainly in that division, that gives them a leg up. That gives them a leg up over Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Key stat, the Bengals were 11-0 in 2022 when they scored at least 21 points. They were 1-4 in games they didn't. Something just more grist for the mill. Remember, they only played 16 games. The game was halted in the unfortunate DeMar Hamlin situation. Will the Bengals go over 11.5 wins? I think they will, because I don't think they'll lose 6 games this year. I think they will. Baltimore, over under 10 wins. They're banking on Beckham Jr. They're banking on Zay Flowers becoming immediate contributors. They have to be. And Baltimore proved to have one of the best defenses in the league and the best special teams player in Justin Tucker. Now, if you can get their offense cooking and get it cooking early and stay healthy and be consistent, Baltimore's a very complete team. You tell me Baltimore can't win 10 games to push? They'd have to lose 8 games to go under the number. I think Baltimore goes over their 10 wins. Cleveland Browns, staying away from this one. Their over-under's 9 wins. The Browns, I mean, their third nods to win the division, right? It's kind of a vote of confidence for a team that's banking heavily on their player, Deshaun Watson, to return to form. We don't know how much of his mojo he's really lost. You're going to have to get him on the field in real live bullets. And I'm not talking about week 1, week 2. I'm talking about over a 17-game season, okay? Myles Garrett, one of the best players in the division. So is Nick Chubb. Still going to come back to Deshaun Watson, just like I said. All right, Browns have only won more than 8 games just once in the last 15 seasons. So people pick on the Lions, people pick on, well, the Browns haven't done much either. Finally, the Steelers over under 8.5 wins. Steelers have the best value in the division by far. Their offense needs to improve, but they did make a very smart move by getting another playmaker in Allen Robinson. And a couple of their additions on defense, including the rookie Joey Porter Jr. Now, Pittsburgh, they're going to be able to turn every game into a slugfest. That's what they do, a fist fight in the phone booth. This is the league's best interior defense. Remember, Mike Tomlin has never finished below 500 during his 16-year career as his Steelers head coach. Their total is 8.5. They win 9 games, 9-8. They go over 500. You don't think they can do that? I think they can. All right? By the way, back to Baltimore, and I talked about them going over their 10 wins. They've averaged 10.6 wins a game per season since Lamar Jackson was drafted. They were only under 500 once. So there you have it. Hopefully Joe Burrow stays healthy. If so, what does that mean? Well, that means I think you're going to see the Cincinnati Bengals prevail as long as Joe Burrow is healthy. But that is a division that is a little bit more wide open, and all four teams have a legitimate chance to at least get to the postseason. Coming up, the NIL is heading for a little bit